Chapter 2. The Survivor. The lane to their building was narrow and wet, a strip of mud and coal dust hemmed in by brick that never seemed to dry. Thomas stood there with his kit at his feet, listening to the river's dull breath somewhere beyond the warehouses. The light had gone thin and grey. He could smell cabbage boiling 2 doors down and the bite of lye from the wash-house behind the yard. He had not rehearsed a word. He climbed the stairs that listed toward the street, laid his hand on the latch, and paused. The door was a cheap plank, scarred by years of knocks, oiled by hands like his. Inside, the kettle ticked, steady as a clock. He pushed the door in. The room was one square of light from a single sash window. A stove, a table, 3 chairs that did not match, a strip of rag carpet worn to threads. His mother stood by the tub with her sleeves rolled, hands raw and red in suds that steamed. Damp laundry hung on a line from corner to corner. A Bible lay open on the mantel with a sprig of something dry tucked in it. She turned at the draught, wiped her wrist across her forehead, and squinted as if the shape of him could change with the angle of her gaze. "Tom," she said, and his name filled the room. She took 2 steps with her hands still dripping, then stopped as if she had struck a wall that no one could see. Her eyes moved past him to the doorway, the landing, the stair behind his shoulder. "Where is he?" she asked. He had thought he would set down his bag. He had thought there would be tea, that they might sit. He stood where he was and felt the boards under his boots give a little. "Ma," he said, "where is your brother?" Not a question now. The words came slow, each with its own weight. She looked past him again. The stair was empty. The landing was empty. Her hands shook, and a line of suds slid down her forearm and dripped from her elbow to the floor. Thomas swallowed. His mouth had gone as dry as burlap. He tried to shape the thing he had brought across the sea, and it would not fit through his throat. "The ship," he said at last. There was a wreck. She did not move, only her eyes changed. He had seen sailors look like that when a squall came out of nothing, a line of iron on the horizon that had not been there a moment before. "A wreck," she repeated. "What happened?" "We struck something, a reef or a wreck adrift. At night." He kept his eyes on a knot in the table wood. There was no warning. The hull tore. It was fast. Her fingers found the edge of the tub and gripped it. "And Edward." He had thought to say the sea took him. He had thought to keep it simple. The words he had polished on the coach jumbled and fell away. He felt the chill of the hold, the iron cuffs against bone, the lamplight going under. He saw the last breath push from Edward's mouth, the shape of it in the black water. "He went below when the first bell sounded," Thomas said, careful. "To fetch, to check the lashings. He was a good boy. He did what he was told. The water came fast. It was dark." Her face did not change, only her lips pressed together and turned pale. "Did you see him?" Her voice had dropped and softened. "Did you hold him?" "I tried." He looked up and the truth almost tore his jaw loose. He forced it shut. "I tried to get to him. The gangway was full, men shouting. The lamps went out. We were thrown. It was all at once." He felt the table edge against his thigh and leaned into it as if he could lean into a different life. She was breathing through her nose in shallow draws. Did he suffer? He heard the chain rattle. He heard Edward say Tom, and the sound was small, and he was a child again, in time and not in time. "It was quick," he said. He forced himself to hold her eyes when he said it. "He was brave. He stopped. A word too many would betray him. He did not cry." She nodded once, as if she had bargained for that answer before he came. Her hands came away from the tub, and settled on the front of her apron as if to keep it from falling. The laundry line swayed a little, as if someone had brushed it with a shoulder in passing. "Do we have him?" she asked. The question was old and practical. "Do we have his body?" "No." The word came out bare. "The sea kept him." She stood very straight then, though she was not a straight woman. Years bent her back without asking. She wiped her hands on a rag, folded it once, and laid it on the table with care. "Sit," she said. "You look done in." He took the chair nearest the window. The light made a clean square on the tabletop. She poured tea without looking, dark and tannic, and set the cup by his hand. He did not bring it to his mouth. "How long were you out?" she asked, eyes on the kettle's lid. "After? How long in the water?" "Long enough." He managed a breath that felt like it scratched him on the way in. "We clung to planks. We sang to keep warm. It was not kind." He had not sung. He had not spoken. The men that did went quiet by dawn. "And the company," she said. "Did they give you anything for it?" There was no bitterness in her voice, only the sound of a woman who made figures in her head out of habit. "Wages owed," he said. "A shilling for the dead," they said. "For candles." He waited for anger from her, and then remembered she did not spend anger like that. It was too dear. She set her hand flat on the table a few inches from his. Her nails were rimmed white from the lie. "You did not eat," she said, as if that were the part she could fix. "There is bread. I am not hungry." "You will eat," she said. And in that there was comfort, because it was the only thing that did not have to be decided. He watched her slice bread with a knife that had been sharpened down to a sliver. She spread it with dripping and set it near his cup. He reached for it, because to refuse would have been another wound. "Does Mary know?" he asked, and he hated that his voice shook on the name. "She is at the shop. She will be home by bell." His mother glanced at the door again, and he could see her counting the steps that would bring his sister up the stairs, the moment when the air in the room would change a second time. "I thought I would hear both of you," she said, almost to herself. "You were always louder together." He put the bread down and pressed his thumb and forefinger to his eyes until the stars came. "Ma," he said, and the word was not enough to hold what he wanted to pour into it. She turned back and looked at him fully now. There were lines by her mouth he did not remember. She dried her hands properly on her apron and came to the chair across from him, sat and folded her hands in her lap like a girl at lessons. "Tell me," she said. "Tell me where he was standing. Tell me what the sky looked like. Tell me what I am to keep when I speak his name." He opened his mouth, and the sweetness of raw opium hit the back of his throat, as clear as the night it had been. He chose a different memory, built it fast and neat, and hoped it would stand. "He was on the ladder," Thomas said, "by the foreyard bulkhead. There was a lantern swinging. The sea was black. The stars were hidden. The ship went over to one side as if pushed. He did not shout. He grinned at me like a fool and—" He stopped. The grin had been real earlier that night, over a scrap of cloth and a crime that had looked small and had turned out to be a world. He looked at me," he said, quietly now. "And then the lamp went out." She nodded. A little breath left her. He could see her putting the picture where it could live and not tear her. Her hands were steady again. "Did he say anything at all?" Thomas's mouth worked. He could have said Tom, the way it had sounded in the hold, like a child. He could have said help, which had been there with it. He could have said forgive me, which had not been said by anyone. "He told me to tell you," Thomas said, and now he could not help himself, "to keep the blue scarf in the drawer for Mary. He said he knew you were saving it. He said he liked that you kept things back." She blinked and then smiled, small and true. "He would have," she said. "He watched me every Thursday when I folded it." She reached up and touched the edge of the mantle, where that scarf lay in its paper. He noticed little things. Thomas nodded. He had given her something that did not hurt. He felt sick with it. The door on the landing creaked. A foot scuffed, then another. Mary's voice came down the stair, bright with fatigue. "Ma, the butcher would not." She stepped into the doorway and saw Thomas, and her face lit. And then she saw that there was only Thomas, and it fell in a long, slow slide. He stood too quickly and knocked his knee on the table. The cup rattled against its saucer. His mother did not stand. She did not move at all. "Sit," she said to Mary. "Your brother is home." The words were simple, kind, and then she added the piece that made it real. "Edward is with God." Mary made no sound for a long moment. She put her bundle down, set it carefully on the floor, and came to the table as if the boards might break. She put her hands flat, like her mother had done, and bent her head. He watched a tear fall, and another, and make small dark circles on the wood. Thomas wanted to speak. He wanted to take every word he had said and turn it right side out. He saw Mary's hands and thought of Edward's wrists raw against iron. He swallowed the truth again, and it went down sharp. They sat like that for a while, 3 points around a table that had known everything a table could know. Outside, a bell rang the hour. Somewhere someone laughed. The kettle sighed and then fell quiet. His mother lifted her head first. "We will go to Father Keene in the morning," she said. "He will write his name in the book. We will light a candle. We will say his mass. I will sell the good pot and the Sunday apron. We will manage." Thomas nodded. The plan steadied the room. He could stand inside it. She reached across and took his hand. Her palm was rough, and it was the best thing he had felt since he had come out of the water. "You did all you could," she said. "I know you did. You would not leave him if there was a way." He met her eyes, and for a second the lie cracked, and the flood came up through the boards. He held it. He did not let it through. "I tried," he said. Mary squeezed his other hand and leaned her forehead against his sleeve. He smelled the rain in her hair, and coal on his own coat, and the ghost of the sea that lived in everything he owned now. "Sleep here tonight," his mother said. "Your bed is made. Take your boots off. I will put the kettle back on." She stood and moved to the stove, as if warmth were a thing she could press back into the world by force of will. He untied his laces and set the boots side by side. He sat again and watched his mother measure tea, watched the small, careful motions of her hands. He opened his bag and took out Edward's cap. He had washed the salt out of it at an inn in Portsmouth and dried it by a weak fire. It was still misshapen. He set it on the table, palm on top of it for a beat. Then he slid it across. "For you," he said to Mary. "To keep." Mary lifted it like a church thing and held it to her face. She closed her eyes. His mother turned at the sound and saw what it was, and stood still for a long beat with the kettle in her hand. "Thank you," she said at last. They drank their tea when it was ready. The bread went down dry and sat heavy. The light climbed the window a little and then slid away. When they rose, he went to the small bed that had been his and lay on his back and watched the ceiling's old stains until the marks turned into maps. He could hear his mother moving, putting cups to rights, banked coals, the soft study of the Bible page. He turned his face to the wall and listened for water. There was none, only London breathing and a cart in the lane. He closed his eyes and saw Edward under the black. He kept his hand flat on the blanket to stop it from reaching for a chain that was not there. In the morning, they would go to the priest and say the right words in the right order. Tonight, he would not sleep. He would lie very still and keep the picture of the lantern swinging in place of the real one. He would hold his mother's words against his ribs like a board against a breach. "You did all you could." He repeated it in time with the kettle's remembered tick until it became a kind of prayer.